thank you to all the Rotarians. I do want to say that in Lima, my family were Rotarians, and so I was very familiar. In fact, one of the Rotaries in Lima has a room dedicated to one of my cousins, and it's called Salon Tito Nicer in name for the Rotarians. So I'm very familiar with the work you do, and I congratulate you for the work you do. Okay, so without further ado, okay. All right, so today I'm going to introduce the museum to you. Some of you have been, some of you have not been, and that is not the right slide. Let's start with the first slide, please. There we go. All right, so the first slide is the Rotary Club San Miguel, and I'm going to try to answer these questions, why, where, and when, during my talk to you today. So as you can see in the middle of this slide, there is a beautiful piece. It's a toy. And this is not something that you're going to see in the Mercado de Artesanía. This is a unique piece. So that's the first fundamental difference between what the pieces that we have and the pieces that you will see at on the street. On the street, they're made commercially, whereas these are made individually by an artisan. So Angelica is here, and I did not know she was going to come. So when I put the slide presentation together, I wanted to introduce you to her. She bought the building, and the building is at the corner of Núñez in San Francisco, just 2 blocks above the Jardín. And she bought it many years as a family home and then donated it and created a foundation in 2010 and created a museum out of first her personal collection and then, as you will see, with many things more. So she started with her own doll collection, as you have heard, and the as you can see here too, some of these are really toys, and I'll explain afterwards the difference between what is a toy and what is a piece of art, because that's really fundamental. So the museum has all kinds of programs like you, a lot of educational programs and outreach programs, because like every museum, it has all kinds of hats, right? First, preserving all the things that are there and cleaning them and so forth, but also doing outreach to the community. So the museum goes straight up and down. It's an old-fashioned house. For those of you who have not seen it, we do not have beautiful murals like you do, but we certainly have a lot of objects. So the museum right now holds about 3,500 objects, and not all of them are on display because that's impossible to do. But that's a lot of objects that are there. And you can see the rooms are divided into fairgrounds and playing house and transport. And I've given you this piece here to show you what the difference is between what you see on the street and what you can see in the museum. Here's a truck that's transporting chickens. But what the artisan has done in lacquer is he's created this gigantic, wonderful, playful piece that has the huge, I don't know, is it a rooster? I don't know. When I always ask people, is it a chicken or a rooster? I don't know the answer. But the thing is, it's much bigger. It's fun more than anything else. And that's, I have to get closer. Oh, no, I don't want to hold it. I've got too many things to hold. Sorry. The fact is, I'm very short. I'm very short, but that can't be helped. So you can see as you go up and down the rooms, each room really has a theme, and that theme is going to is what you're going to see in that room. So the fairground is one of the themes that I personally like the most. And if you look at these pieces, you're going to see they have cranks or handles. And that means that the artisan has been able to make this piece move in many, many different ways. This piece here is by a very famous artisan who died during COVID, Don Chinda. And when you get close to it, you'll see that there's three merry-go-rounds. Here at the back, there's a theater with musicians playing. Do you see the mariachis at the back? Here there's a show, and when you get close to the piece, you'll see that there are vendors, ice cream vendors, cotton candy vendors, and when you turn the crank, the whole thing moves. So this is incredible skill. These are not engineers, these are artisans who are working on their own and creating something that is a movable, joyful piece. So as you can see, I noted here that this one is made out of wood and that this one is made out of cardboard. Um, many, many uh, different materials, and that's what I'm going to show you is how different artisans and in many cases artisan families work on different materials. So is this a toy or is this art? And that's the question that we really have to ask ourselves. Because in most cases, I'm not even allowed to touch the things in the museum, and I'm the one giving the tour, right? I'm not allowed even to touch the crank. So what I say to most people when they come to visit the museum is that think of this as folk art inspired by a toy. Yes, we do have some toys that a child could play with, but in most cases, I would not give any of these pieces to a child. This piece is a pull toy. Do you see here? Right? And it's made out of gourds. If you look carefully, you'll see that there are people sitting in each one of the seats. Do you see that? Yes? In this piece, these wheels will always turn, and the detail that the artisan has brought to this is quite extraordinary. It really is. We're very fortunate to have a museum like this in San Miguel. There are really only two popular art museums in Mexico. I've had the privilege to see the one in Mexico City, which is gigantic. But now that I know the San Miguel collection, I know that the one we have is probably just as good, if not even more so, than that big, big museum in Mexico City. The pieces that Angelica Tijerina has been able to collect are really quite outstanding. She is an amazing museologist, and we should be very happy to have such a museum in such a small town. Look at these three pieces and look how varied they are. This piece here is made out of straw. Do you see the detail? The truck has lights. It has somebody sitting inside. It has wheels. There's several pieces like that. An artisan or an artisan's family will take months making a piece like that, and that is one of the things that the museum does, and that is to support the artisan. My helicopter here, do you see the people? In fact, there's 4 people sitting inside the helicopter. The helicopter is made out of the gourd. Do you see the shape of the gourd? And at the back, it has a kind of, I don't know, snake head, I don't know, something like that. And in addition, it's painted very, very carefully and lacquered. This one is one where you have to look at proportion. Look how big she is compared to the truck. She should be a tiny little person, right? But here the artisan is using his artistic joy, his artistic fun to show you that we can take a gourd, make the gourd into this lovely, lovely truck, and give her not only facial expression, hair, but something that she's carrying in her arms. So when you look at the pieces specifically, you get to see a lot more because you get to admire metal work. Okay, so all of you who probably played with toy soldiers at some point, all right, so this is toy soldiers taken to the next level, right? These are toy soldiers that are, look how each one of them has a different instrument, has a different uniform. There's the drum, there's the horn, and um, and look here, this is a truck carrying water. Many of us buy water here, so they're using the daily reality to present what a truck looks like. It showing you the pieces like this doesn't do them justice because some of them are very small. In fact, there's a lot of miniatures, and some of them are as tall as I am. I'm not very tall. But, you know, very large pieces, very small pieces, and everything in between. So you really have to come to the museum to get a feeling of how rich the collection really is. The instruments are beautifully decorated, beautifully painted. Look at the detail of the paint here. It's just magnificent. And again, different materials. And this is a gourd here made into an instrument. And you see how varied these pieces are. You can stop me and raise your hand at any time you have a question and just ask questions. I'm happy to answer if I can, and if I can't, we have the expert here who's going to tell us what things are. So we've always had temporary exhibits, and the temporary exhibits vary. We had a temporary exhibit of Day of the Dead that occurred obviously in October, November, and then a nativity exhibit that ends this this Saturday. So I'm going to show you one of my favorite pieces. And this is so personal. Sometimes you see a piece of art just like when you go into a museum and you say, okay, well, I really like this. And your friend will say, well, I like the next one. So anyway, here is a tractor, right? The tractor, you see it? So here is Joseph, and he is in the steering wheel and his hands. And here is Mary, and Mary is sitting in the passenger seat, and she's holding the baby in her arms. Behind the tractor, you can see them. This one are the 3 kings. Here's 1, here's 2, there's 3, and look how the artisan has painted this, how his creativity has taken him beyond what is a normal nativity scene that you see everywhere or that you have in your home, and created a masterpiece of putting Mary, Joseph, and the Christmas story into a tractor. Look how he's used his paintbrush to decorate, and how at the top, you can barely see it. This is my own photograph, my apologies. Here is an angel that sits at the top of the tractor. And one of the people who went through the tour with me discovered that the angel is holding a calla lily in her hand. So this is what I do. Is I've been through the museum there many times now, and I assure you, every time I go, I discover something new because there are so many pieces. The advantage of doing it with a tour is that I focus you like I'm focusing you here and showing you the pieces here. This is a more traditional nativity scene, and materials used are very varied with thatch and wood and paint. Each artisan or artisan family gives his or her own interpretation to the joy of making these toys. So we've had 8 contests now, and the last contest was in 2023. And the reason for the contest is one of our biggest outreaches. So you don't want these artisans to become car mechanics and teachers. You want these artisans to continue being artisans and stay. These are skills that are passed down through the families over the years. And so the contest has about 10 categories: wood and miniatures and metal and so forth. And the museum buys first, second, third, and honorable mention pieces. So with 8 contests and artisans coming from all over Mexico, the collection that we have now is much richer than it was in 2010 when the museum opened. It also facilitates the artisans' lives, and that's what you want to do. You want to facilitate these artisans' lives. Let me just show you a couple of small pieces here that are, these are this is a game, like it's in the fairgrounds where you throw things. And here, this is a woman that is showing off uh, the material that has been woven. So different materials, different styles, and a great help to the community at large, not only in San Miguel, but all over Mexico. I want to give you the names of some of the artisans, because just as we know the names of great artists in art, we know the names of these people. So Josue Eleazar Castro Razo has created a piece that is from the Pátzcuaro reality. Have many of you, I'm sure, have been out on the lake there. So look carefully. Here, these, you see the handle? All right. So when you move the handle, the boats move back and forth, all of them, and the people in the boats move back and forth. It's quite amazing to see how somebody who really has such skill to be able to do this. Cardboard here, wood, other materials here, a whole combination. This is a large piece, about half the size of this table. Here is a woman. I really like showing the women because in many cases when the families sign pieces, they sign the name of the man. And so, but there are families, and in some cases the women do some specific job and the men do another specific job. So I always like it when a woman has signed it. In one case, I remember when we lived in Cuernavaca, I asked one of the artisans, will your wife sign the piece? And he said, no, I'm going to sign the piece. So I said, well, shouldn't she? And he said, no, this is my family. I should do this. So here again, you see a very, whoops, sorry about that. You see a very big crank. You see it here? Right. So this is a merry-go-round. The merry-go-round obviously moves. You see these pieces here. So each one of the elements goes up and down and up and down and turns at the same time. Look at the detail of the decoration too. It's beautifully painted and lacquered. Uh, a lovely, lovely piece. We do Saturday workshops, and the Saturday workshops is, I'm just showing you here what we give you something like this, which is the unpainted doll, and we hope that you will come up with something like that. So the first time I went, I didn't even know that these were supposed to be women, and so I gave my doll both a mustache and a beard, and the person doing the workshop was embarrassed because she didn't want to insult me and say, no, no, this is supposed to be a woman. But then they displayed it to show that, anything goes. Uh, These dolls are made out of paper mache on a mold, and we have a lot of molds, and it's very interesting how the mold then creates this very, very beautiful doll. That is. The workshops depend on your skill and your time. They're on Saturdays at 11 on one of our terraces. At the very top of the building, there are two beautiful terraces with views of San Miguel, and we set up tables on one of the terraces, and it's even warm in the winter when you go there. We have two stores, one that is attached to the museum itself, and one that you've probably seen, which is right beside the parroquia. It's interesting. I went to look at the stores to see what they had. And in that case, you do have things that you could give to a child, as well as objects that you would display in your house. Whereas the museum really mostly has objects that are art objects that, if there are puppets and things like that, that you can buy. Outreach in education is something that is very important to the museum. So we have a Wednesday program. Every Wednesday, there is a school, a series of schools that go to 4 venues. It's done, I believe, with Bancomer. Is that correct? With Banamex. Sorry, I got the wrong bank. And what they do is they take children from a school and they take them to the Casa Allende, they show them the parroquia, and they show them around the Casa Canal, I believe. And then they come to us, they go through the museum, and finally they get a lunch. And it's a way of giving importance and showing children that this is part of their cultural heritage. So every Wednesday, if you come on Wednesday, you'll see there's a whole crowd of school kids that goes through the museum on a weekly basis. It's very important to us to do this kind of educational outreach. The other outreach that we tried once and were unable to continue was outreach with a vehicle. Instead of bringing the children to us, is outfitting a vehicle and taking the vehicle out to the towns and pueblos, and having children and adults walk through the vehicle, and the vehicle then becomes like a movable museum. I think if all of us who come here to winter here or to spend time here know how beautiful this artisan work is and how important it is as a tradition within the Mexican context. We want to be sure to pass that importance on to young Mexican children, not just to foreigners, but to have the Mexicans take pride in these great, wonderful pieces of cultural heritage like we have. So I do a tour on Wednesdays, and this is, I wanted to show you this piece because I always show this piece because it's one of my favorite pieces. So why is it, what is it about this scooter? It speaks to me. And whenever I say to people, this is one of my favorite pieces, they kind of look at me and they say, well, why? So I say, well, I don't know. She has such a lovely head of hair, and she's got this lovely shirt with buttons, and she's wearing shorts. One of her legs is up, one of her legs is down. She's holding the scooter handle. The wheels move. She has this lovely childlike expression. She's holding a toy in her hand. And I say to her, everybody, there's always a piece that speaks to you. Why? It's like when you go into an art museum, it's the same thing. It's always the same, right? So please join me on Wednesdays, or what I said to Ron was I would like to invite the Rotarians to come on a specific Rotarian guided tour. Ron and Kike did a private tour with me, and but I'd love to have a Rotarian tour. And if you can sign up for it or tell me when and why you want to do it, and what dates would be best for you. But um, some of the rooms, I mean, this is a home, right, that's been converted into a museum. So some of the rooms are small. So 15 people is kind of the maximum in terms of how many people. If there's more than that, you'd have to have two docents and have one docent in one room and one docent in the other room. Otherwise, you can't really see the things, and it becomes uncomfortable for everybody. All right, so I walked into the museum 3 years ago. I had been before visiting, and I just said, well, what can I do? And they looked at me and I said, I don't know. And so I said, well, I can give guided tours if you teach me. I come from the Spanish classroom, so I don't know much about folk art. I know a lot more right now. But they walked me through it. So if any one of you wants to help out and become it, I can give you my notes and walk you through it. We have a lot of people who come who are perplexed by the fact that it's called toy. In fact, I've met people who've lived in San Miguel for 20 years who had never been inside because they said, well, we're not interested in toys, right? But in fact, this really stretches the word toy and goes from toy to art. So the last piece I want to show you is this little car. And so it's made like a Volkswagen. Look how shiny it is. Look, can you see the people sitting inside it? Every detail is absolutely wonderful. And when you see it in a display case, when there are, I don't know, 20 other pieces, it's very hard to focus on it. Whereas when I show it to you like this, you can focus on it and really admire it. So I want to thank you, and I'd like to invite Angelica, who would like to say a few words. I don't know if she's going to speak in Spanish, but if she does, I'll be happy to translate. Yo te traduzco.
Sí, tú me traduces. Mil gracias por estar aquí, por tener atención para nuestro querido museo que este año cumple 15 años. En septiembre cumplimos 15 años. No sé si quieres, sí.
All right, so Angelica thanks you and says that this is the 15th year of the museum.
Y para nosotros ha sido muy especial que Eva nos apoye, porque desde que llegó a San Miguel, así como ustedes han hecho una serie de eventos y de programas para ayudar a la comunidad de San Miguel, Eva se integró con nosotros y estamos muy orgullosos y muy contentos de tenerla con nosotros. Vas a tener que agradecerte a ti misma en inglés.
This was a thanks for me for coming to the museum and helping out and being part of the museum. And she said, you're going to have to thank yourself.
It's a pleasure. I hope to see you at the museum. We open Tuesday to Sunday. And we appreciate your visit because now we need a lot of visits. It's a difficult time for us, but we are very happy to have the museum and stay here in a beautiful town, San Miguel, that I know you love San Miguel, like a lot of people that came like visitors and then said, soy San Miguelense. Thank you. Thank you. Gracias, señor.
So I do have both a website and a phone number for you. I apologize for not putting them on a slide. The website simply is Museo La Esquina. And the phone number, I think maybe I'll give it to Ron, 415-152602. What you can do two things. You can just walk in at any time and you're most welcome. And you can call or you can email to book a visit, and please bring your friends. I think this is one of San Miguel's jewels, and I love to just spread the word of us having such a wonderful place that we can go to. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ava. I have to admit, we've lived in town for 10 years, and we walked past that museum countless times and never gone in, you know. But once you go in, I mean, this is not a toy museum. This is an art museum. It is phenomenal. So I really encourage you. It's only a few blocks down the street here, okay? So on your way home, you can stop in and say hello. Do we have any questions?
Yes, I'd like to take questions, please.
Yes. As you probably know, I'm on the fellowship committee, and we do tours. Some of you went out to the honey farm, and we had a great event out there. Could I see the hands of people that would like to tour this facility? Okay, that's enough. David Bossman and I will set it up, and we'll make it an event.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much.
She does a great tour, let me tell you.
you.
And
Yes.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Can you take photographs of the toys?
All the photographs you want. Absolutely. There's a question at the back.
Nice presentation, Eva. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm involved with the School for the Deaf here in San Miguel that is supported by a Rotary Club. And I'm very interested in getting a little more information on the outreach and education program, specifically through Banamex. Is that available through Banamex? Would I contact them or through the museum?
I'm going to say I don't know, but Angelica does. And we'll talk afterwards and she'll give you the details. I have, I do my thing in English and the kids do the tour in Spanish with the Licenciado Berrocal, who's just come in with a hat.
Okay. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys supporting artists like you mentioned in the contest that you have, where you have first, second, third honorable mention. What cash prizes or what educational scholarships do you offer the winners? The kind of range of what you're giving out.
The entire cost of a contest is 1 million pesos, which is distributed across the board depending on the prizes and depending on the categories. So we have enough money in order so that these families can live. Let me add, though, that in 2024, we did not have the funds to do a contest. The last contest was in 2023. Obviously, there were contests that were interrupted by the COVID years, but we did have a contest in 2023. And funding, as you know, for every single thing that you want to do and do well is difficult to get. So um, let's hope that we can have a contest in 2025. Thank you for that question.
And all of you, you received this, and all of the contact information is on the back. So you
Oh,
have everything that you need right here. Any other questions? We have a Robin.
First, congratulations. I'm one of those who's been here 20 years, basically, and hadn't been. But when I ask people what their favorite museum is, they always say this. So it surprised me. It's a great presentation. And I have one technical little question. Your last picture was of that little red car. Is that wood or what?
it's a gourd.
It's a gourd. Oh my goodness. And I want a real quick follow-up question. Where did you come from? You've got a great deal of enthusiasm, knowledge, etc. Not everybody could do this. A lot of people can be a docent and walk through and be enthusiastic, but you've got something. What's your background?
I'm classroom teacher.
From Peru.
Well, but
A plug for Peru.
all my teaching experience is in Montreal. My students were French speaking. And so in 4 semesters, my students were 17, 18, and 19 years old. And after 4 semesters of Spanish, they were pretty fluent in Spanish. Going from French to Spanish was really quite easy. We had some majors who then went on in Spanish, but we have a huge number of Quebec tourists that travel Latin America and the Latin American world. There's a lot of interest in Quebec for the Spanish-speaking world. And the reason I came to this was that I always felt that my classroom had to go way beyond just teaching kids how to book a hotel room and buy a meal. I really felt that the cultural importance was just as important as learning, because in any case, you can always make yourself understood to book a hotel room or to get a meal because you have a menu. Whereas the cultural richness, if you have never heard of Diego Rivera and you have a teacher who introduces Diego Rivera, well, that's part of a curriculum that goes beyond teaching language and is something that they can take with them for life. So in my many years in the classroom, I did a great deal of integrating culture. I've always also done teacher training. I'm also very comfortable in front of a crowd of 200 or 500. So that's why when you see me speaking here and being comfortable, it's because I've done this a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ann. Elephant. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. That's an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
I love the Toy Museum. I've gone there many times. It's one of the most special things in San Miguel. When you go and see it, you will be blown away by it. So very exciting that maybe we can set up and go as a group. And thank you very much for your presentation. It was a great presentation. This is one of my very favorite presentations that we've had this year. Absolutely. So, okay, no, I'm in a whole Rotary year. So, Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. I hope you have a great week. We are adjourned.